Hey, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. Greeting from Switzerland. Actually, I'm in the living room. And we're looking at scenes from Switzerland. It's beautiful. Grandmother and I were there last year. Excuse me. Hopefully my voice will make it through this. I'm not supposed to drink water tonight because I'm having a second cataract surgery done tomorrow. I'm having my right eye done tomorrow. Last month I had the left eye done. So I'm going to be like Superman. I'm going to have x-ray vision by tomorrow. So we're in Matthew chapter 24, and we're going to start to look at prophecy. He's been touching on what's going to be happening to him, but now we're going to start to talk about end times prophecy, the end of the world. Christians believe, and I believe, that the world has a beginning. It was created by God. God's going to judge the world in the end of days, and He's going to judge all human beings, whether they're dead or alive. Two separate things. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing. It's very complicated. But as we cover the whole Bible, if you stay with it, and especially if you read it yourself and study yourself, you'll find out what I'm talking about. Now, as Jesus was going out of the temple courts and walking away, his disciples came to show him the temple buildings. So they're pointing out, like, oh, look at this. They're probably going, this is amazing. And it was. King Herod, he was the guy that killed the 2-year-old and under babies in Bethlehem when he heard about the birth of Jesus. He built the temple. He built 3 places. One was this temple. One was Masada, which is a fortress up on the top of a mountain next to the Dead Sea. And this was destroyed, and he's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about it before it happened. He said to them, "Do you see all these things? I tell you the truth, not one stone will be left on another. All will be torn down." And it was going to happen in 70 AD. So maybe about 40 years after when Jesus does this, it happens. As he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, his disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us, when will these things happen?" So they must have been, it's a little bit of a walk, probably a couple-hour walk to get to the Mount of Olives from where the temple is. So they were probably talking amongst themselves and just wondering, like, what's he talking about here? Because if you remember another time, he told them, you tear this temple down and I'll raise it up in 3 days. But he was talking about his body. "And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" So they're now at least asking intelligent questions. So they're picking up on some of what he's saying. It's like, okay, there's going to be an end to the age, and he's going to come back. Jesus answered them, "Watch out that no one misleads you. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will mislead many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Make sure that you are not alarmed, for this must happen, but the end is still to come." So now, there's a couple things here. Number one, people every once in a while say, "Well, I'm the Messiah." Some will say they're Jesus, some will be somebody else. "I'm the Messiah, I'm the Messiah." And he said that. It's going to happen a bunch of times. People are going to come. They usually wind up getting a whole bunch of people killed. And of course, none of them are the Messiah. And the other is you'll hear people say, especially at a time like now, there's a war in Israel, there's a war between Ukraine and Russia going on, and there's several other wars around the globe. They'll say, "Oh, it's the end of the age coming any day now because there's wars and rumors of wars." But what he's saying here is there's going to be wars and rumors of wars, but the end is not yet come. It doesn't mean the end is here. For nation will rise up in arms against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of the birth pangs, the birth pains. So he's saying that the end of the age is going to be like the birth of a baby. And Olive, you were just born 4 months ago. So maybe a couple weeks before you were born, your mom started to feel things in her body, and we're getting ready to have a baby. We thought you were coming maybe 3 weeks after you did. Then one day she called and said, "Hey, guess where I am?" Because we were going to go out there to be there when you came out of the hospital, the whatever you call it, the birthing room. And so you never know exactly when the baby's coming, but you know it's on its way. And so when there's all these things, wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes and famines, things that are going on around the world every day now, all you know is that that's the beginning of it, not that it's the end. Then they will hand you over to be persecuted and will kill you. You will be hated by all the nations because of my name. Then many will be led into sin, and they will betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many. And that's just like the false messiahs. It's the false prophets. I'm coming in the name of the Lord. You run into these clowns all the time. Some of them are on TV with their own shows, trying to bilk people for money usually. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many, and because lawlessness will increase so much, the love of many will grow cold. But the person who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel, this good news of the kingdom, will be preached throughout the whole inhabited earth as a testimony to all the nations. And then the end will come. So the gospel has to get to everywhere. Everybody has to have a chance to say, "Jesus, be my Savior." So when you see the abomination of desolation spoke about by Daniel the prophet, And we're talking about a pig being slaughtered on the altar. A pig's an unclean animal being slaughtered on the altar in Jerusalem. Standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. The one on the roof must not come down to take anything out of his house. And roofs back then, I mean now, if you're in a place like Jerusalem, it's like being in any other city. And most cities in Israel are just like cities here, towns here, like towns here. So, but back then, you could go up on the roof. There was an area up there. People would sleep up there and everything. If it was nice out, you spent a lot of time there. It doesn't rain that much in certain parts of Israel. In fact, in a lot of Israel. So people would go up on the roof. So they're saying, if you see this coming, then don't even go into your house and take anything. Just go. Leave right away. And the one in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. Woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing their babies in these days. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath, for then there will be great suffering, unlike anything that has happened from the beginning of the world until now, or ever will happen. And if those days had not been cut short, no one would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, these days will be cut short. So there's a lot going on here. I'm not going to get into what the lot is, but I could write a whole book just on these couple chapters that we're in the midst of right now. This scene that going on this river looks a lot like Thun, Thun, Thun. Oh, good. Just as I said that. I'm pretty convinced that the algorithm knows when you do anything. When your eyes look at it, they go, yeah, you need to see a commercial. Thun was an interesting place. They had surfboards. They'd take them out there and ride these rapids. They were tethered onto this bridge, and they would go to the end of the tether and just ride it. Like it was amazing. Yeah, this looks like Thun. Grandmother and I went up to one of these fortresses at the top of the city. I wonder if it tells you. Nah. And it had one of those bridges like that. Then, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe him. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. And the elect are the believers, the elect of God. So be cautious. Even if people do miraculous things, they may be false prophets or false messiahs. Remember, I have told you ahead of time. So then, if someone says to you, look, he is in the wilderness, do not go out. Or look, He is in the inner rooms. Do not believe him. For just like the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. So they're carrying birds that feed on the dead body. And that's what these false prophets and false messiahs are. They're vultures. They're despicable. When the Son of Man comes the next time, he's going to descend out of the sky. I saw a lady with a t-shirt on one time that said, Jesus is coming back and this time he's pissed. And and I'm sorry, but that sums it up. That sums it up. Immediately after the suffering of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man arriving in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet blast, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So he's going to gather us. And by us, I mean me and other believers. You have to make up your own mind what you believe. He's going to gather us from wherever we are. Doesn't matter what color we are, what language we speak, man or woman. He doesn't care. If you're one of his elect, he's going to gather you on this day. When is this day going to come? Nobody knows. He's going to talk about that. Learn this parable from the fig tree. Whenever its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also you, when you see all these things, know that he is near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. And by generation, all the Bible's translated that way. It doesn't mean, that generation of people that were alive. It probably should be translated as these people. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Think about that. The earth that we live on, the heavens, they're going to pass away. He created them. He can uncreate them. Be ready. But as for that day and hour, no one knows it, not even the angels in heaven, except the Father alone. For just like the days of Noah were, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. For in those days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and took them all away. It will be the same at the coming of the Son of Man. Then there will be 2 men in the field, one will be taken and one left. There will be 2 women grinding grain with a mill, one will be taken and one left. Therefore stay alert, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, If the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have been alert and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. So if he came right now, I'd be very surprised. And the message is simple: always be ready. Always try to be following God, but following what Jesus has told us to do. Who then is the faithful and wise slave whom the master has put in charge of his household, to give the other slaves their food at the proper time? Blessed is that slave whom the master finds at work when he comes. So that's what we're to be. We're to be at work. Wow, look at that house up in the clouds. That would be the scariest thing. I would just go in there and die. I tell you the truth, the master will put him in charge of all his possessions. But if that evil slave should say to himself, my master is staying away a long time, and he begins to beat his fellow slaves and to eat and drink with drunkards, then the master of that slave will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not foresee, and will cut him in two, and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Jesus is getting real. So we're going to see more end time prophecy coming up as we march on towards chapter 28, which is the resurrection. A lot of deep stuff. Peace out.